Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council work session for Monday, August the 18th, 2025. Did you see I got the date right there? Let's see, why are we getting an echo? I have that. All right, what do I need to mute here? Anything on the iPad?
Maybe she needs to mute.
Do you have yours on mute, Sonia?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, some reason it's kind of echoing through there. Just turn it down. That'll work. That works even better. Okay. All right. So here we are for our annual get-together for the budget and capital program presentation by the city manager. This will be our first work session on this issue. We'll have a couple of other work sessions to discuss ongoing issues that may be found within the budget or just any other issues that people want to potentially bring up as we move through the first reading of the budget. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. My apologies ahead of time. Heat and cold is not doing good for me, so I have a bunch of these, but I don't want to choke on them while I'm talking during the meeting tonight. So I'll try to muscle through with a little bit of a scratchy voice. So here we go. Your Honor, members of the council, the proposed operating budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026 is hereby submitted for your consideration. Determination of the annual budget is the most important single endeavor of the City Council as it impacts the lives of every single citizen of Raymore, each member of staff, and guides our future strategic planning. The budget has been prepared using the modified zero-based budget, target-based budgeting approach. A couple of items from the economic condition and outlook that I'd just like to give a little bit of an overview to the council. We do believe that fiscal year 2026 is going to be marked by continuing stable but slightly slowing growth in all of the sectors, residential, commercial, industrial. Two contributing factors to this really. Number one, developers are going into this year with a degree of caution and uncertainty. 4 areas of caution. Number one, they're a little bit concerned about the unknown of tariffs and how that's going to impact both building materials and development materials as far as infrastructure is concerned. They're concerned with the interrelationship, obviously, between interest rates that are currently in place and inflation. Obviously, those are impacting each other right now. And finally, they're a little bit concerned about labor force issues. Always a concern, especially with larger developments that are going in. Our industrial, we see that a lot. Concerns about where that workforce is going to be coming from. Interestingly enough, with all 4 of those, the three beginning ones, the inflation, the interest rates, and the tariffs, banks are a little bit concerned. We're hearing from developers and builders now that it's not just their caution, but the banks are a little bit worried right now. We hear from builders, developers in areas that their construction loans and their building loans there's a much more, we'll call it judicious allocation of those funds. We actually see in some of the developments, instead of being able to secure those loans ahead of time, they're actually by phase now. And that's even with our larger development groups. You hear them having that discussion a great deal with us. Second area of concern that we've discussed with the council, our normally stable revenue source of real property tax is very materially threatened by Senate Bill 3 that was passed in the special session. We don't know the outcome of that. It has to be on the ballot at the county level right now by April of next year. Degree of uncertainty of what that's going to look like on the ballot. By April of next year, we will be 3 months into the new session. Is the legislature going to try to fix that ahead of time? Because they know that if it they all admitted in the last session that they think that SB 3 would not withstand, that portion of it would not withstand constitutional challenge because of the variation in the counties. So perhaps one of the concerning scenarios, we'll put it that way, would be that the legislature tries to fix it before it goes through the court system for some type of an interpretation. And as we all know, the legislature trying to fix some of their previously passed laws sometimes goes worse than their passage of the original law in a short term. So those are two real concerns that are leading to that stable but slowing growth. It's a degree of uncertainty going into the next fiscal year. Any questions on any of those thoughts? So let's just plunge into the city manager's proposed budget details. I'll start it with the final paragraph of my budget message. For the first time in years and years and years, this particular budget includes a brand new fund. Fund 15, the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund, is being introduced to you all tonight. As you all know, with the passage of the quarter-cent sales tax in April, we are able to fund up 8 new officer positions in the police department and to achieve the maximum transparency in both sources of funds and uses of funds. We wanted to establish a completely separate fund to track those going into the future. With that being said, looking at the general fund for the fiscal year 26, page 35 is the summary of the fund at the beginning of the general fund tab. As I explain to the council each year, before we can start looking at 25-26, we have to project the ending of 24-25, and to project the ending of 2024-2025, we have to look at how we actually ended last fiscal year, 23-24. You see up at the top of the page in the first dark blue, when we were meeting at this time last year, and we were projecting the end of 23-24, we thought that the beginning fund balance for 24-25 was going to be $4,200,740. In fact, after we trued up and went through the audit for 23-24, that amount is $4,941,630 higher than what we had been projecting at this time last year. Contributing factors to that are revenues for 23-24 were $320,286 higher than we had anticipated at this time last year. Expenses were $436,604 lower than we thought that they were going to be at this time last year. Again, when we're looking at the projections the same way we did this year, staff is anticipating all expenses, and they're also not counting any unrealized revenues as a part of conservative budgeting. You'll hear that again as we get into 24-25. So again, instead of the $4,200,740 beginning balance, we have the $4,941,630 to start. Any questions on that beginning balance? So from that starting point, let's take a look at where we are now projecting revenues for the current fiscal year 25, where we're at. As you can tell from that sheet, we are anticipating being within a couple of $1,000s of where we actually budgeted property taxes in this year. Franchise taxes, sales taxes are anticipated to be slightly above budget. Within the franchise taxes, again, when we budget, you're going to hear me say this again for fiscal year 2026, when we budget the franchise taxes, we have a pretty clear view of where residential is going to be. For the upcoming year, we're anticipating 148 residential units being built. What we don't have a clear view on, and we don't want to anticipate, again, conservative budgeting, we don't know where commercial is going to go, and we don't know where our industrial is going to go. So we tend to budget those very low or at zero at the beginning of a year. So that conservative budgeting within the fees and permits, where we're anticipating coming in 260,902 above budget, we think that is, now we can see that we had the Van Trust come online, we had some commercials come online that we had at zero at the beginning of this year, this time last year that we were looking at. So again, a healthy 36.78% above where we had budgeted in that particular area. Within the franchise taxes, we're anticipating the 98,776 above. Primarily, all of that is due to increases in rates and users with Evergy. And that has led to the increase in the franchise area there. Little bit in Osage Valley Electric as well, which is kind of unusual. Those revenues have been stable for years and years, saw a slight uptick there. Again, sales taxes is in the same category as the franchise taxes. A light increase, all three areas of the sales taxes. As far as general sales, gasoline sales, and state vehicle sales tax are all anticipated to be up slightly from what we had budgeted, and again, for an increase over budget of $64,454. Court fines are anticipated to be down. And the reason court fines are down is while the Unified Development Code offenses are slightly up, our actual municipal enforcement offenses are down. That is due, and you're going to see it kind of repeated a little bit next year. Turnover leads to 2 officers in a car, the FTO and the officer, so you don't have as many officers out in the cars who are actually doing the patrolling because you have field training going on. As those officers come off of their field training and everybody's in a car, then you're going to see that amount stabilize again. You're going to see it big time next year when we've got 7 officers with their FTO in a car. So those, again, when those folks come off, we'll see this particular source of revenue kind of as a natural course go up. In addition to, again, I had discussed the fees and permits. In addition to those, miscellaneous revenues are anticipated to be up considerably. The reason for this one is, once again this year, we are enjoying unbudgeted higher interest rates. So you all know, and of course you all see this sheet each month in your budget. We have a good diversification in our investments right now. We're in treasuries, we're in the MOSIP pool. We have 4 CDs out there. We have other treasuries. Good mix of folks who are getting those bids. Community Bank of Raymore has gotten 2 of the bids. North American Savings has 4 of those bids. Commerce is involved in that, and of course the MOSIP group. As of July 31st, the average annual rate of return the city's realizing is 4.52% on those particular investments. So expenditures that we're currently projecting for fiscal year 2025, once we get through that revenue section, the expenses are currently anticipated to be $458,059 below the expenditure budget. As you look down that summary sheet, you'll notice that every single department is slightly below the budgeted amount. And anticipation on all that is we always budget very conservatively high in insurance, and it's also folks being very, very careful about what they are projecting they're going to spend before the end of the year in other categories. The 2 exceptions to that are items that are kind of thrust on us that we don't have as much control over. One is we don't have control over the weather, and we are seeing the shift from snow events where we can plow to a significant number of ice events where we got to put down more salt. More salt leads to going over budget, and it seems like we've been over budget on salt. Even though we've been increasing it each year, we've been over budget on salt for probably the last 2 to 3 years. It is what it is. We have to do that for public safety. Within the finance department, again, an item that is thrust on us is this continued increased use of credit cards and credit card processing fees. We are working very diligently to, at some point this year, be able to bring the city council a program to reduce those processing fees while having zero impact on our residents. But perhaps looking at what we can do to alleviate those fees for developers coming in and paying huge expenses using their credit cards and seeing what we can do there. Again, we have to work with the credit card companies. They have different rules for parceling out those particular fees at given times. All that being said, with the higher than budgeted beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2025, lower revenues than budgeted, or lower expenses than budgeted and higher revenues, always a good combination. We anticipate a ending fund balance in fiscal year 2025 of $5,116,016 against a budgeted amount of $3,336,431 at the beginning of this fiscal year when we were doing the budget last year. So that particular ending fund balance is what we will be we are anticipating beginning fiscal year 2026 with. Any questions on the current fiscal year? Thoughts, concerns? Let's kind of process that for a second while I get my voice back.
Speaking of that, you know the guy that invented throat lozenges?
Uh-huh.
He passed away. There was no coffin at the funeral.
Staff laugh. That's why we have you here. All right. Fiscal year 2026 revenues in the general fund. And for consistency's sake, I always compare what we are budgeting in the next fiscal year to the budget for this year, rather than running these all over the place, so that there is a consistency in presentation. Staff currently projects that fiscal year 2026 revenues will come in $402,162, or 2.84% higher than fiscal year 2025 budget amount. Again, under 3%, very conservative. The areas that I'd kind of discussed with fiscal year 2025, we carry that same thought over into 26. Property tax is anticipated to be $69,824 higher in fiscal year 2026 than it was budgeted in fiscal year 2025. Two items contributing to this: the artificial cap that is always placed on the real estate and personal property tax by the state. You'll remember it's always the lower of inflation, 5%, or what the actual assessed value increase is. So having that lower of in there, no matter what happens, we're going to be paying the lower amount. Also, very conservative budgeting concerning the senior tax credit that's in place. We have heard from Mr. Mollendorp at the county and have reduced within the budget, contributing to that only $69,824 increase. We've had to reduce this amount. He anticipates the freeze will have an impact of $48,160 in the general fund. A number that was a little bit shocking to us, 2,240 senior participant homes in Raymore. So roughly a quarter of our single-family homes took advantage of the senior tax credit. Leads to some thought processes on services as well. When we're looking at necessary services to be delivered to the citizens of Raymore, when you think about the fact that a quarter of our single-family homes are senior households, that gives us a little bit of pause. And maybe we can do some good things in that area when we're seeing those kind of numbers. Franchise taxes for fiscal year 2026 are anticipated to come in 192,993 higher than the fiscal year 2025 budget amount. Almost entirely Evergy usage, and another Evergy rate increase that's coming in right around the corner. Again, the same way that we look at the other ones, 148 homes for this year. In both this and the fees and permits, we don't anticipate anything else when we look at that particular number. No commercial, no industrial. Sales tax receipts. Sales taxes are anticipated to come in 3.93% higher than the budgeted amount for fiscal year 2025, at $196,576. As we do every single year, and just like what we do with fees and permits and franchise taxes, if it's not being built right now, we're not anticipating any sales taxes from it. Even though we hear folks are gonna be out there, there's nothing that's in play for this.
Did you calculate the fact that there'll be no sales tax on diapers or incontinence supplies after starting September 1?
All of that, yeah, it's all taken
Okay.
into,
Okay.
yes, sir. Do want to remind the council of one of our very successful businesses. We're seeing very, very stable, very good sales tax generation from Chick-fil-A. And the reason we are seeing some of that, as you all know, it was a sales tax, basically amnesty for 10 years or $750,000 for Chick-fil-A, whichever comes first. But they can only claim that sales tax back to them from funds that they are using. So they get the amnesty in the general fund, the stormwater fund, and the transportation fund because they use that money within the infrastructure on their site to help build the site, not the building, but the site, which means the capital improvement sales tax money is still received by the city, and the park fund money, sales tax, is still received by the city. So again, we've talked about the structure of that deal being very good for the city, and it continues to serve us well. Fees and permits for fiscal year 2026, again, 148 single-family homes, can't repeat that enough, anticipated to actually decrease budget to budget by 121,132. And the reason for that, again, is we aren't anticipating any fees and permits from any developments, any industrial, or any commercial coming in. Municipal court, as I had said before, concerning the FTO situation, we do anticipate a decrease in municipal court fines of 38,878. And of course, we still see the effects going all the way back to SB 5 of what we can and cannot fine people for. So a continuing ongoing impact within the municipal court. Miscellaneous, anticipate a budgeted increase of $216,494, 26.63%. That is due to the automatic increase that we see in dispatch fees, and as well as the continuing higher interest rates from what has been budgeted in the past. The 4 transfers that are always in place are there. Again, this year, as we have in years past, transfer in from the transportation fund of $320,000 to help with general fund operating expenditures associated with transportation, specifically in streets. Transfer from the stormwater sales tax fund to do the same thing within the stormwater area. This year, that transfer is anticipated into the general fund of $331,224. Transfer from the enterprise fund, and again, we go into great detail on how this is calculated. The complete explanation is at the back of the enterprise fund with its own tab, enterprise fund to other funds, chapter in the enterprise fund. This year, or next year, it is anticipated that this budgeted transfer would be $1,486,315, and it goes to directly offset administrative and other costs that are being paid for out of the general fund. Example is the utility clerks are paid out of the general fund, transfer in from the enterprise fund. Some of the costs that are associated with the credit card processing fees that our water and sewer customers, when they're using their credit cards, use. Capital project, a number of our capital projects with the continued study and professionalism of our Public Works Department, they do a lot of their own inspections. Rather than, a lot of times we'll be bidding out items for design and engineering. Normally those firms carry over and actually do the inspections during construction. Ward Road would be a good example. These are all associated with projects where we're doing either the majority of or the entirety of the inspection to assure the integrity of the project that's being done. That amount for next year is anticipated at $321,514. Any questions on the revenue areas for next year? Perfect. Compensation and staffing. For fiscal year 2026, first item, we would anticipate an improvement to the salary chart of 1.5% and stepping all of the employees through for their merit increase of 2.5%. That equates to basically a 4% salary increase for all of the employees. Health insurance within this budget is actually anticipated at 20% for medical, an increase, 20% for dental, and 20% for vision care overall. We are hoping that that amount can come down. We're hoping it will come down as it has in years past considerably. Mr. Murdoch, Ms. Auger are working very, very hard with our insurance broker to try to get those amounts into a reasonable range. At the 20% increase, as you can see at the bottom of the page there, a 20% increase depending on the employee plan with the medical benefit is anywhere between $2 and $72.70 increase. The loggers program, first time I've ever seen this, both the general employees logger contribution and the public safety, the police department employee group are going up by exactly 1% in loggers. So the general employees will be at 15.1% contribution, and the police department personnel will be at 17.2% increase. I would remind the council, because it may be a point of discussion at one of our future work sessions, that our dispatchers currently, although they're eligible to be considered as public safety, they are not considered public safety. They are still in the general population. The law changed, I believe, 4 years ago now, to allow them to be considered as public safety personnel. We have not yet taken advantage of that discussion for one of our work sessions with the council. Our loggers program is the L6 program, which means there is a 2% multiplier. We have a 36-month as opposed to a 60-month final average salary. We are not on the rule of 80, and we are non-contributory, meaning the city pays the entire contribution amount. Staffing within the general fund, there is no anticipated change in staffing within the general fund. Recruitment and retention bonus remains in place within this proposed budget. It is a $2,500 bonus, signing bonus at 6 months, and an additional $2,500 at the 1-year anniversary. And the retention bonus is also in place, which is $5,000 on each 5-year anniversary of employment. Those are the staffing and compensation issues
How long
for the
has it been
general
in
fund.
place? 2 years?
Longer than that.
2023, this will be we're going into this.
Yeah, this will be the fourth year for that as well. Questions on staffing? Departmental notes for the fiscal year 2026 budget. There are 4 areas that I want to talk about just real quickly with the council because they actually involve expansion item requests that we're going to be granting to the 4 departments where you see a fairly significant increase compared to other departments. In development services, this particular budget, I have included an expansion item request for the Esri GIS software, very complicated package in the amount of $60,000. The entire budget for development services is anticipated to go up from fiscal year 2025 budget amount by $68,206. So you can kind of see the Esri is having a significant impact within there. We use it a lot. Our GIS specialist is one of the smartest people I've ever met, so much so that he's going to be making a presentation soon to the council, and we're probably going to have to coach him up because he talks kind of up here, and it's really hard to understand some of the things he's telling us sometimes. Within the streets budget, increase from 2025 to 2026 budgets of $82,848. Several items are contributing to this, but the 2 that are the most significant are the debris haul-off program, so we don't get ourselves in. The council will remember we had to pay a significant amount to get the debris cleared out from behind the Public Works building. Wanted to make sure that we had a program in place to keep up with that annually. The other item is we have seen really good results from the new crack sealing program that we started last year. The material is a little bit more, so contributing to the $82,848 are the materials associated with that particular program. Within finance, an increase of $94,887 over the fiscal year 2025 budget. Again, the credit card processing and billing fees going up. We'll be speaking with the council about that. Within the police department, we see a $400,655 increase. The slightest increases in staff pay within the police department do lead to significant increases within that budget. But 2 other items that are of note this year is the soaring costs associated with outfitting our vehicles. And we've searched for a considerable amount of time. Mr. Murdoch has been on this for about 18 months, trying to find somebody who isn't charging an arm and a leg and also does a good job for us. And they're kind of disappearing. Where we can take those particular vehicles. So once again, kind of at the mercy of those groups. And the other one that's really important, one of the first items that's on the list because we are going for the Blue Shield designation through the governor's office, is we will be joining Lexipol this year. Transfers from the general fund to the park fund anticipated. Once again, the transfer of $100,000 into the park fund from the general fund. as we have for years past, and transfers from the general fund to the restricted revenue fund of $107,500. And that is to pay for the bonus program that I had just discussed with you all. Transfers from the general fund into the VERP fund, and we'll be talking about these here in a moment. 3 expansion item requests that I'd like the initial one-time payment purchase to come out of general fund available fund balance, but instead of it being the available fund balance that we talk about at the end of the year, because these are very, very necessary and going to save us money in the long run, I actually put them up into, on page 35, you will see the 273, which is a transfer out to the VERP in the gray area. That 273 would normally be down in available fund balance. I've pulled it out of that because it would be an automatic expansion item request when we start talking about available fund balance from us. Council has also always recognized staff's automatic requests on that, so I just inserted it into the budget this particular year. And that is for a 144-inch finish mower for the Parks Department, an asphalt roller for the streets, and a pothole patcher for streets. Doing a lot more of our own work. The numbers to be saved in the Parks Department with this 144-inch mower, it is, I'm gonna rough these, Nate. 3 people 2 days to mow our field, 1 person 6 hours to mow our field. So working smarter, not harder. So I think that this will be one that pays us well in the long run to have this in. Also does a very nice job. Expansion items included in my proposed budget to you all this year. Allegiant lease switch agreement for IT, $7,611. Allegiant firewall agreement with IT, $26,160. Both of those are recommended security items from IT, so we can continue our ongoing upgrades for security and irritation of staff at trying to get into any software program in the city, but IT seems to enjoy doing that to us, and they do keep us safe every year. Again, the Esri Enterprise Agreement that we talked about at $60,200, the asphalt roller at $55,000, pothole patcher at $155,000, and the Lexapol for PD at $26,840, finish mower for parks at $63,000. And again, the VERP contributions for the 3 pieces of steel that we're ordering within this will then be coming out of the appropriate departments. Parks will pick up the VERP for the mower, Streets Department for the asphalt roller, and the pothole patcher moving forward. Expansion items that are not included in this budget: temporary full-time employee for IT at $32,755, and OpenGov software at $265,409. The OpenGov software is a huge bite that we're initially looking at right now. I feel like there are other programs that are in place that may or may not be coming to the useful end of their life. But this would not be the year that I would want to see that kind of large expenditure, which is followed by another large expenditure if we expand out to the full use of the program next year. So you have to analyze expenditures like that every single year and make a determination on the rewards that will be received by it. It does some great stuff, but I want my staff to further explore what we can be doing with what we have in hand right now, as opposed to spending that type of money. The IT temporary FTE, I will make the announcement tonight Mr. Mayberry has announced to us that he is going to be leaving us after how many years? After almost 27 years, he'll be leaving us next spring. And he had initially put this in, and as the council knows, I always include all the expansion items and requests that were initially asked for, so that you can see that. But we are going to go a slightly different method. We were a little bit worried we may have to bring somebody in underneath there to kind of fill in, to start getting them trained up ahead of time. We're going to be going a little bit of a different direction that won't require that. Any questions there? So with all that being said, fiscal year 2026 projected ending fund balance is $4,711,072. Of that, when we hold back the soon-to-be approved by the city council, 17.5 restricted fund balance in the operating expenditures of $2,533,369. There is an unrestricted available fund balance for the council to use on one-time expenditures, please, $2,177,703. We will have a very specific recommendation. The council will remember your commitment to transportation costs associated with that available fund balance. We have more than ever. So at the next work session we'll have some very specific recommendations for you on that and some totals that we can be giving to you. That concludes presentation on the general fund. Very excited to bring you all, if excited is a good word, the next operating fund, which is the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund. Again, April of 2025, passage of the 1/4 cent sales tax to equip 8 new officers for the Raymore Police Department. The beginning balance, you'll note, kind of unusual because we talked about everything surrounding a November 1 start date for that particular program, but the initial collections take place in October. The beginning of the second quarter after the passage of the tax is the rule on that. So we will actually have on November 1 an accrued beginning fund balance of anticipated at $83,033. We anticipate the revenues from this, and we had discussed this with the council during the program, I will not call it a campaign, for the sales tax of $1,026,289 in the sole generated revenue into that particular fund. Interest on these amounts would be anticipated at $3,321 for total operating revenue in the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund in fiscal year 2026 of $1,029,609. Expenditures, total expenditures within the fund are anticipated at $816,184. This is to, what I want to remind the council of is we won't be snapping our fingers on November 1 and have 7 police officers and a detective hired. There will need to be a process. So we kind of look back historically at what we see as far as time to hire an officer, time to get an officer trained, number of officers as a percentage that we actually have to send to the academy where they're being paid a cadet salary rather than a police officer salary. And then all of the things that are anticipated with equipping the officers, fully equipping them up. Incredibly expensive to get these guys safe and get the things on their belt that they need and what they're needing to be wearing. So again, when we added all that together, $816,184. Projected ending balance with all of that of $296,458. The required, because this fund is an operating fund, the required restricted reserve of 17.5% of $142,832 leads to an available fund balance at the end of the year of $153,625. While I would normally say to the council that could be spent on one-time things associated only with hiring new officers, because this is the first year and it's a big unknown, we could hire officers earlier, or we could have some people come over from other departments where we're not having to do any sort of a training up, except for our normal field training. I would encourage the council, ask the council that they leave that amount sitting in the fund, so that we can adjust in year two if necessary.
Do we only hire already certified officers, or do we budget money like some other municipalities and counties where they will fund a person to go through, like the academy, and do all that with some commitment to, you know, work here for a certain amount of years or things like that? Do we do any of that, or is it only look for already certified officers?
It is absolutely the latter.
Okay.
And within here, this is actually funding their education at the academy, a
Okay.
percentage of them. We're hoping we can, again, we look back at what historically have we seen. There are a percentage of these 8 that would be hired across. There's a percentage that would go to the academy. Post-certifications, still necessary for all of them at some point, but this includes paying the academy, paying them as cadets while they're in the academy, which is, of course, not close to what we're paying them once they're officers. But all that factored into this. Great deal of detail trying to get this one formed.
Is there a degree of lateral transfer as well?
Yes, we have been discussing that.
Okay.
What the mayor means on that is where we if we're hiring somebody from another department, where are we placing them on the chart? We're not bumping them all the way back. Are we giving them experience coming in?
Yeah.
And that was factored into this as well. Any questions on the public safety sales tax fund? I suspect that presentation in future years will expand. It's real simple in the first year. Just ask Ms. Williams. She was so pleased to be able to put all this together this year. Park fund, if there are no questions. So revenues in the park fund, and again, I say it simply that the park board sends across a balanced budget, and I just turn that over to you. Getting to the point where that simple statement can be made isn't quite so simple. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussion between the park fund and the park sales tax fund, and what's going to happen there and the dynamics that are associated. However, we are at a balanced budget, and that is what I am presenting to the city council. So revenues within the park fund, the park levy is 9 96/100 per 100 of assessed valuation. That second reading coming up, which translates into, of every dollar of property tax that is paid, 8.39 cents goes to the park fund. The levy in 2026 is budgeted to generate $555,127. Program revenue within the park fund is anticipated to generate $848,582. Every single year we look at this, we try to look at it just like the regular budget, really from a zero-base standpoint. Good evaluation on the part of the Parks Department, what's working, what's not working. What do we see as far as interest next year? Obviously, with the World Cup coming, one of the things the Park Fund looks at is that going to generate a lot of interest in soccer for next year? Then, so will we see an increase in that particular area? Things like that are looked at each year. Within the park sales tax transfer in from the Park Sales Tax Fund, which occurs every year, Next year, that is anticipated at $725,000. The breakdown from a percentage standpoint, the levy will be generating 24.91% of parks revenue. Program revenues correctly will be the largest percentage at 38.07%. Transfers will be at 37.02%. Over time, we have seen the program and transfers increase as the amount, it used to be about a third, a third, and a third. We are seeing the amount that is being generated from the levy continue to erode as years go by. Again, this one is also impacted by the senior tax credit. Expenditures within the park fund are budgeted to increase from the fiscal year 2025 budget amount by $107,825. This is associated with personnel increases, pretty simple personnel increases, as well as needed capital equipment. Capital equipment in the Parks Department reaches the end of its useful life very, very quickly. Expansion items that are included in the budget are the mower that we described above at $63,000, a custodian position being moved from seasonal to part-time at no cost, assistant attendant position being moved from seasonal to part-time at no additional cost. But again, those don't show up on your budget pages, but I do have to approve them. It's a little bit of a different application for those folks. Expansion items requested but not included, there were none for the Parks Department. Any questions in Parks? The Enterprise Fund. Again, want to remind the council, as I do every year, the Enterprise Fund is strictly a cost of service fund. We try to, in any given year, look at exactly what it's going to cost us, and we try to end the year with a very, very moderate available fund balance at the end of the year in case there are emergencies coming up. Those are the targets that we shoot for each year. Revenues in the enterprise fund are mainly people buying water and using sewer. And then, of course, within the solid waste component, it is we charge the customer exactly what we're being charged in any given year for what the cost is to us. Water and sewer use charges, as the council knows, we had taken those to you. They will be on the final fee schedule for approval. And again, we include the water, but the sewer use charges always have to go in front of you all with a public hearing for approval. That is coming up. So water and use charges from 25 to 26 are anticipated to go from $6.62 to $6.68 per 1,000 gallons. Sewer rates are anticipated to go from $9.32 to $9.42 per 1,000 gallons for a blended rate of $16.30 per 1,000 gallons. Expenditures in the water department. Primary expenditure in the water department is budgeted at $3,076,111 to buy water. Shocking. KCMO is the sole supplier of water for us. Their rates are anticipated to increase, are budgeted to increase, and they've already told us 6%. That is a historically high number, and it comes right on the heels of last year's 4% increase from KCMO Water. Sewer, Little Blue Valley Sewer District, we anticipate a budgeted amount for fiscal year 2026 for processing our sewer of $1,774,854. Middle Big Creek, the second portion of that, at $49 per connection, an anticipated cost to Middle Big Creek budgeted at $1,217,748. That is a total water and sewer amount of $6,068,713, and that is against an entire expenditure amount in the water and sewer departments of $9,779,511. So almost 2/3 of the expenditures are what we have to pay for the service and the commodity that are associated with that. Solid waste, again, budgeted according to what is currently in place at $2,293,838 in expenditures. That is simply their contract, and that is the amount that we will be collecting from customers. Questions on those? Transfers out, again, as I discussed earlier, within the enterprise fund for costs that are incurred by the general fund, $1,486,315. And the cost to the enterprise capital maintenance fund, the transfer there anticipated at $750,000 again. As we continue to see deteriorating infrastructure associated with water and sewer, and a good example is last year's and the upcoming year's necessary repairs on the sewer lines. You will probably be seeing me recommending beginning next year that amount begin to accelerate as far as what we're transferring into there. That will impact the rates as well within the enterprise fund. Questions on the transfers? Expansion items included that were requested are none. Expansion items not included in the city manager's budget. They had asked for a Ford F-150 four-wheel drive pickup. I did not allow that. They have a pickup down there now that is shared administratively. Still don't see enough usage on that it can't continue to be shared, so not recommending that on to you all.
Is that 19,300, is that lease for a year?
That's correct, sir.
I just didn't want to buy that pickup.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Well, we ordered 4 of those.
When you get that deal, we'll go out tomorrow and buy some.
Any questions on enterprise? Yeah, there is equipment associated with that too. It would have had a plow. So debt service fund. Again, debt service fund, a little bit nervous. It is the third fund that would be impacted, that is impacted by the senior tax credit and will be impacted if SB 3 exists in some form before the end of the year. Currently, the debt for next year, general obligation debt, and remember there's 2 different types of debt, general obligation and then special obligation and other types that we have, but right now, existing is only special obligation in the other category. But for next year, total general obligation debt is $3,808,350. Total debt, general obligation debt before the end of their life is $31,970,000. We have special obligation total debt of $9,863,446, meaning right now, as of this evening, the city has total debt outstanding between those 2 categories of $41,833,446. I bring up this year especially, talk about the margins that are associated with that. Remember, there's general margin, which can be used for any type of general obligation debt, and then there's specific margin, which can only be used for infrastructure that's associated with the general obligation bonding. Right now, we have $56,284,422 in both, total amount that could be taken down in both general and specific. But against that 56 million in the general, we have 13,074,810 outstanding. And in specific, we have 18,895,190 outstanding. Therefore, the general debt capacity right now at this reading is $43,209,612, and specific debt capacity is $37,389,232. Draw your attention to the 43 million in capacity that exists. That is the total amount of general obligation bonds that we could issue tomorrow with voter approval. Has nothing to do with no tax increase, that's just the amount. Would point out to the council, the reason that that general number is important is because we have talked about very, very soon the need to go to the voters for a no tax increase bond issue for a justice center. If the no tax increase could support it, the maximum amount right now that we could take out to build that is the $43,209,612. And we have in the restricted revenue fund just over $4 million already set aside for that. So just want to point all of those numbers out to the council within this particular presentation. Questions on debt service? The internal services funds, vehicle and equipment replacement fund, it's going to be used this year again for the asphalt roller, the pothole patcher, and the parks mower. And there are also two smaller pieces of parks equipment that have reached the end of their useful life that will be paid for out of the vehicle and equipment replacement fund. It is used more now for specialized rolling stock, obviously, since we use Enterprise to lease most of our smaller vehicles. The restricted revenue fund, expenses anticipated this year out of that are transfer into the transportation fund. The Oates bus expense, this is the last year that we have budgeted for the Oates bus expense. We still see limited usage of it. And again, the employee incentive program that's in place, it gets transferred out of the general fund into the restricted revenue fund for use. Any questions on the internal service funds? On the opposing page, you see the combined operating expenditures. Quite often, these numbers are the numbers that are used when somebody asks you all, what's the budget for the city? The total operating budget for the city is $28,401,747. Questions on the operating funds, the debt service fund, the internal service fund that we can answer for you all before we move to the capital funds? Okay.
Anybody want to take a break? No? Everybody good? Okay, keep going.
So each year at the budget presentation, I present to you all, obviously, the operating funds that we've just been through, and then the capital funds. The capital funds are, of course, the first year of the 5-year CIP, but flippantly describe it as where the action is. These are the ones that you're going to be seeing in the next 12 months coming on. And so we limit it to this. And I think that the best way to present the capital funds to you all is to just simply plow through them. And so I start with the Building and Equipment Replacement Fund, which is going to be page 304 within your budgets. Give you a sec to get there. There are 5 projects that will be budgeted out of this fund with council approval. First item, each year, and this started, I believe, 3 years ago, Mr. Mayberry? We have just like a VERT program, but we need it for the expensive servers that we have with the number of them that we have. So each year we budget $15,000 for a continuing replacement of those servers as they reach the end of their useful life. This particular projector is getting very, very tired. For those who have to sit and look at it, you know it's beginning to fade. The images are very, very light. Sometimes it doesn't come on. It was actually proposed last year, but we put it off for one more year. I probably should have replaced it last year. That is a $10,000 capital project. IT security upgrades, $65,000 within here. This is primarily a response to the conversation we had about parks vandalism. And all of these are various items that in our discussions with IT, discussions with the police department, we think are going to help us in that area. In addition, there'll be camera additions. We have a lot of cameras out there. There'll be upgrades to the cameras, security product additions out in the parks, possible gunshot detection sensors, panic buttons, radar sensors that pick up somebody when they get into the park, whether it's a light or not, speakers for automated messages out into the parks, and then, of course, the software replacement and upgrades that would be associated with putting all of that equipment in. City Hall refresh, this has been a bit in coming. As you all have seen each time you come in here, the asphalt on the parking lots is getting into very, very bad shape, a lot of cracks. We have done as much as we can as far as crack sealing and overall sealing and fog sealing on it. This time it would be my recommendation to you all that we replace it once and for all with concrete, whether, as you know, the pads right now, the parking pads are concrete. We propose extending that to the entire parking lot so we don't have to just keep doing this over and over and over again. It also would be, you've probably seen a number of areas on the, not replacing the entire sidewalk, but there are a number of failing areas on the sidewalks, repairing those. And then, yes, which is kind of critical. The 2 spots, as a matter of fact, over there. And then putting what is called a speed table. It's basically a mild hump right out in front. During the day, sometimes at night, our parking lot is used as a shortcut. People wanting to get to the gas station or back from the gas station don't go around the circle. They come through the parking lot, and they often forget they're in a parking lot. And so they are really coming through the parking lot. So proposing a speed table to help with that particular item, and also identify that as kind of a pedestrian walkway. I mean, it's the main entrance into the building. Well, I'm sure we'll hear him for a couple of weeks, sir. City Hall landscaping and tree replacement. The front patio here at City Hall, the area to the west of it has, year after year after year, we keep saying we're gonna do something with that. Turns into kind of a jungle about this time every single year if you walk out and take a look over there. This is actually to once and for all landscape this. A lot of hardscaping involved here. You'll notice the boxwoods, like a vehicle, have reached the end of their useful life. A lot of them are starting to die out. We spend a great deal of time each year doing plantings. While they're beautiful, it takes park staff, which is a limited staff, a long time to go in there and plant individual flowers each season and then pull the bulbs back out when their time is used up. So we would go more with a hardscape type situation with this particular one. We also have a number of trees that are dying here around City Hall that need to come out. We had to accelerate one of those actually by the drop-off box. It had died for about the third time, so we took it out this year. Had this habit of dying and then coming back. We don't know what was going on there.
Mr. Fairmore?
Yes.
One thing I would just compliment our city and our Parks Department. Last month, we wrote a program up in another city. I don't want to mention the city, but close by. And their big community center and events there. I mean, it was very sad how the landscaping and not being taken care of. And you have, and when you first go into something, that's the first thing you see, whether it's a business or it's a community, and you invest millions and millions of dollars into a facility, and then you plant stuff, but you don't take care of it, and it's terrible. And that's the one thing, we do a very good job of that.
Thank you,
And
sir.
that's appreciative, and it's very noticeable. Even my wife had made a comment, it's very noticeable,
Thank
how
you,
we
sir.
take care of things versus there.
Very much appreciated. Staff works very hard on that. So that landscaping and tree replacement, the amount of $39,600 out of this. And of course, the high amount on the City Hall refresh is due to the fact that we're moving from asphalt to concrete. But that'll be a long-term investment for us. The next fund that is going to have expenditures out of it as we move through is going to be the Transportation Fund, and that's going to begin on page 317. I'll be presenting the programs from page 318. Great. So every year we have 3 projects paid for out of this on an ongoing basis. This year, the annual curb replacement program out of the Transportation Fund in the amount of $674,000. It's really hard to believe that we started at about $100,000 total on curb replacement and what it's grown to. The annual street preservation program in an amount of $1,098,000, and the right-of-way infrastructure repairs in the amount of $159,000. Again, those are ongoing amounts that we dedicate to these each year and try to bump them in the years where we can. There are 4 discrete projects associated with the Transportation Fund being proposed for next year's capital. First one is an additional left turn signal at North Cass Parkway and Dean Avenue. If you have had the opportunity to be down there when a shift is changing, there is a considerable backup on Dean Avenue since Newly is now our #1 employer. It is noticeable, the cars are backed up, so this adds an extra left turn signal. We have money left over in the original governor's grant, and we're thinking that some or all of this $40,000 may be able to be paid for out of the residual that's left over in that particular grant. Definitely a necessary project. North Madison Street Road reconstruction. Like the amount that I put into the gray area in the general fund ahead of time, rather than asking for it out of available fund balance or a balance within the transportation fund, this needs to be done. So I have pulled it out rather than ask for a vague amount of an increase in the street pres or the curb. This amount, because it is reaching a very, very bad situation, needed to be, I felt, delineated as a discrete project for you all's consideration. Again, it goes from Madison Creek north to 155th Street with these repairs. Dean Avenue curb replacement, this has actually been discussed by the council for the past 2 years. It has reached a point, especially as development continues to proceed south, where we're going to start losing road because the curb's not good and the washout that we're getting. So again, like the Madison Street Road reconstruction, including this as a discrete project rather than one that we would simply come back to you all and be asking for a portion to be pulled out of the street preservation money. That project is in the amount of $500,000. That's, it's 7,500 linear feet of curb. Sidewalk replacement program at $328,600. We started this one up to address all of the different discrete projects that come up during the year that we see where sidewalk has to be repaired in order to meet ADA requirements. Again, with the street pres, the curb replacement, right-of-way infrastructure repairs, sidewalk replacement program. As we get into next spring, those are the projects where you will see us delineate at that point in time, based on our grading system, what staff's recommendation to the council is at those points in time.
On sidewalk replacement, especially along Lucy Webb, all along Lucy Webb, because when the sidewalks got put in, they had to build, the city had to put in a lot of areas, a little bit of retaining wall area. And especially at the end of those, at people's driveways along that way, those things are just crumbling because I guess all the salt and sand. Is that the residents' responsibility to have to tear those walls out and replace, or is that considered part of the sidewalk? Because I know we agreed on the sidewalks, but I didn't know if that's considered part of the sidewalk since it was put in when the city put the sidewalks in, or if that's the residents, because I've had several people there along Lucy Webb have, commented about that, so.
Not only Lucy Webb, but also Town Center.
Oh, okay, the same thing, Town Center, okay.
And the mayor actually, and I had a comment, the reason we're smiling is about a month and a half ago, the mayor and I were speaking about this, and this is going to be we're doing a complete GIS survey right now on every retaining wall in the city, making a determination on who actually has ownership of it and where we're responsible. I can tell you the town center ones are almost entirely going to be the city because we did them when we did the sidewalk project there. Lucy Webb is one of the ones where there's going to be some that are going to be resident, some are going to be the city. But we're going to be bringing you a comprehensive review and package for how we can address those moving forward. Retaining walls are very expensive, so there'll have to be a dedicated amount to it. Thank you for the question, sir. Any questions on the projects in the transportation fund? So the next one, just very, very briefly, in the excise tax fund on page 328. Again, an ongoing project that we dedicated an amount to that gets combined with street pres and all the things that we're doing as far as transportation is concerned, $212,000 to the comprehensive pavement management program that we have. And again, that's an every year type of project that we do. We'll be bringing the discrete projects associated with it to you in the spring. Page 334, out of the Capital Improvement Fund. Just like our curbs, our curb ramps, we did the survey 3 years ago, and there are hundreds of these that need to be addressed, both from a standpoint of the concrete around them and the ramp itself being brought up to new ADA standards. So again, we'll be identifying and grading these as far as the worst ones are concerned, and dedicating the $132,500 to that particular program. Next fund is the Stormwater Sales Tax Fund, page 340. Again, we use the Transportation Fund to address curbs. We also, because they're a stormwater conveyance measure, we also take money out of the Stormwater Sales Tax Fund to address curbs. This year in the amount of $424,000. So between the Transportation Fund and the Stormwater Fund, we are looking at over $1 million, $1,098,000 in funding just for curbs. Again, one of those, we started out down here, now we're spending over $1 million, and we still don't know when the end of that particular project is gonna come. Stormwater culvert rehabilitation.
So to that point, we've talked about that for years, and it's an ongoing, when can we get through this? I know a number of years ago, we changed the aggregate of the concrete because we were finding deterioration with that. And we also changed, I don't know if it was at the same time or shortly thereafter, we went away, generally speaking, from the rollback curbs to the high back curbs because we felt there was going to be more life associated with that along with the aggregate change. Have we seen extended life and better quality out of that program?
We absolutely have. A concern that we now have, definitely not, we have no concerns with the modified high back. A concern that we do have a little bit is that there has been a readoption of the aggregate, and it basically ends in L, that we're seeing, again, a little bit of a deterioration on. The problem is the safe aggregate that we had finally gotten to, and this is nationwide, that we had finally gotten to isn't even available. So when you're looking at that, they talk about it being a problem, but they still continue, this is all they're providing us.
I got it.
So we're going to continue to monitor that real carefully.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, sir. Next item is projects out of the, oh, I thought I'd started on it. Oh, sorry. Within that one, there's also the stormwater culvert projects at 100,000. Again, an ongoing program that we put in place a couple of years ago to address the crumbling from that particular limestone that is going on with those. Park Sales Tax Fund is on page 344. 3 projects out of this. The ongoing trails maintenance, while we're doing the very, very large comprehensive trails item, there are still some areas where we want to have the money available if we're doing enhancements and improvements. And even when you're putting it down, there's still need for repair in some areas. So a dedicated $150,000 to that particular ongoing project. Park signage proposal, the park board this year wants to refresh and renew all of the signs in the park to bring them all into the consistent presentation that is associated with that. That project budgeted in the Park Sales Tax Fund recommended by the Park Board at $130,000. TB Hannah expansion, very, very soon, we will be closing on the CV property over there. This is the project that's associated with the start of realizing that expansion to TB Hannah. The $164,000 includes the Park Board paying for the demolition of the house and the initial design services associated with that Phase 2. And also, TB Hannah has a lot of hazardous trees in it. And so this particular amount also involves going in and getting rid of some of those trees or trimming some of those trees that have hazardous limbs hanging off of them at this point in time. Any questions out of the park sales tax fund? Next item is the sewer connection fee fund, which will be followed by the capital improvement, or the capital maintenance fund. And the reason I bring this one up, page 352 within sewer connection fee. So we will be going into Phase 2 of the Owen Good sewer main replacement project. The main reason that again, we're going to realize in this particular section, and we're splitting this between the sewer connection fee fund and the enterprise capital maintenance fund. It applies to both of them. There'll be $679,248 taken out of each fund to pay for the total project at the $1,358,496 is more expensive than the section that we did because we have to go underneath Hubach Hill Road. So there'll be boring involved with this. The contingency has to be higher because anytime you're boring under a road, you have to anticipate a lot of rock. We're also getting into an area where rock is known. So to avoid getting into this, in this particular section, getting into the emergency situations over and over and over again that were costing us tens of thousands of dollars, we want to continue this project. It was also really, really important that one last time we have this picture of this guy standing in this sewer hole. Because I think we only had it about 17 times in last year's budget book. We're going to close it out with this one. When, so you'll notice that on page 356, 357, when we get to the Enterprise Capital Maintenance Fund, we do change the picture out with a new one over on the far right. Again, the 679, 248 out of that. Sanitary sewer I&I, again, an ongoing project to clear up clean water getting into our sanitary sewer and having to pay more. Council will remember we talked about, I have a feeling that this year we're going to be splitting this two different ways. We're going to continue the work out on the east side of town. Talked about the problems that we had with the manhole cover being off, the calf getting into the sewer line down there. But we're also going to be doing some work down in the Dogwood area, where we're seeing some stress being put on the lift stations that are down there. Hydrant replacement, ongoing project each year. We try to get to about 12 of the reaching the end of their useful life hydrants each year, that amount, $189,357. The original town valve installation program, $74,200. Council will remember, this is kind of an ongoing deal, doing a little bit of a pause this year with it so that we can do some survey to find where all of these things are so that we're more efficiently addressing them. But we're kind of lost when it comes to shutting down water in original town. And that actually extends all the way up here to 58 when we need to be turning water off and we can't find it. So this will reduce the amount of residents that we're impacting if we can get some more working valves into there. Sewer lift station upgrades, 67,000. A lot of pumps, bubblers, transducers at all 4 of the pump stations that have reached the end of their useful life that we need to be updating so that we can preserve the stations themselves. Owen lift station screening, so with 195th Street upgrades and raising it up, it's made for a beautiful landscape as you look down towards Owen Good Lift Station. For the benefit of our residents, just like City Hall, we want to make sure that we're taking care of our own properties and keeping them up and screening the lift station from residents. And then the Kentucky Ground Storage Station and the Foxwood Springs water tower, it is time. We always want to keep up on that, doing the inspections on those locations and doing the cleaning that's necessary at $11,500. Obviously, if they find anything in the inspection, we'd be coming back to you all with an expansion of that particular project. That concludes the presentation of the capital fund, sir.
All right. So we got through the general fund, we've got through the general fund, and we've gotten through the capital. Do anybody have any questions now? I know there's a lot of material here to look through. As always, if you have any questions, Mr. Fearborn's a call away. You can ask him about a particular item that's within the budget. His actual budget book is about 3 times this size. That's sitting on his desk, by the way. Did you bring that one in?
This is actually the budget that I have to go through.
There you go. So there's a lot of material here, a lot of numbers. It's probably our most important job that we do is the budget. And it's been, the initial presentation by the city manager has been given this evening. So again, if you have any questions at all with regard to the content of the budget preparation, the budget process, any items that are in there, please give Mr. Fearborn a call, okay? And we will, next work session, this will again be on there in case there are any questions about that. We'll get into a little bit more about the unrestricted fund or restricted fund balance. Did you want to say anything more about that?
Yes,
at this
thank you,
time?
sir. Want to start the conclusion by once again thanking the excellent staff that surrounds you. They are the beginning of the budget every single year. They take it as seriously as I do. They're very thoughtful in their presentations, and by that I mean they look deeply at their departmental budgets. They look at those from the standpoint of, and it manifests itself in the meetings. They look at it from the standpoint of what's the maximum service delivery I can bring with the scarce funds that we have to use here, and provide both solid service and a wow factor for our citizens. And they're always looking at that. Very, very proud to be able to work with them on that. The 2 people sitting immediately to my left are invaluable. Ms. Williams works night and day on this thing. I hear from her on the budget when she's running on the treadmill at 6 in the morning. She's making comments and asking questions about what I'm wanting to see as far as this presentation is concerned and where my concerns are. Mr. Murdoch is the individual who I bounce all of these ideas off of. Before I can bring them to you, he has a unique perspective on public service and what he brings to this table. But again, everybody sitting here tonight is critical to what you all are seeing here. And at the end of the budget, as far as implementation is concerned, that's where the action is. They're the ones who got to make sure that it's being done the right way, and they do. This room spills over with integrity from these folks. There are, if the council will indulge us, 3 work sessions prior to the passage of the budget. There will be, of course, Labor Day in 2 weeks. There'll be no budget, there'll be no meeting. But September 15th, it will be on. If the council indulges us, then it will be on for the 5th Monday of September for discussion, and we have other topics for each of those as well. And then for the first Monday of October, and then there's always the work session in between the 2 reads, if there's anything that needs to be trimmed up. So 3 for sure, 4 if you'll allow us, prior to the final read of the budget, where we can continue these discussions. We'll have some programs we want to talk to you all about. Obviously, the use of the available fund balance in the general fund is always a good discussion. Gives rise to some interesting ideas. We'll have some capital discussions we want to talk to you all about. And this year, in the next budget meeting, am going to want to kind of outline to you, that I am at, going to want to kind of outline to you all the available fund balance within the capital funds that's not dedicated to the discrete projects or ongoing projects that you see here. Going to have some discussions with you all about that, with some ideas. That concludes staff report tonight, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Fearborn or any of the staff members with regard to their budgets? Sure.
Related to the retention bonus for the police department, I'm real happy to see the changes that have been made. I recall that during my time at the police department, we had a retention bonus as well. It was once a year, and your choice was a ham or a turkey.
I remember those days, yeah. All right. Anybody have anything? Ms. Abdelgawad, did you have any questions or comments, ma'am?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.